My goodness, Richard Linklater is churning out these movies. 2 movies coming out within a similar time span. All you other filmmakers are so lazy. Hi everybody, welcome back. Today I'm doing something a little bit different, and rather than talking about one movie, I am talking about 2 today. We're talking about Richard Linklater's Blue Moon and Nouvelle Vague. Decided to combine both of them since they are from the same director and they're both more or less about to come out at the same time, so it seemed like the perfect way to do this. Both films are quite different in terms of the people that they follow and their styles. However, they're both very stylish, they have some pretty incredible casts, and they're centered on very interesting people, so I'm very excited to dive into these. We're going to start things off by chatting about Blue Moon. This is a very small but quite star-studded cast, and it includes Ethan Hawke, Andrew Scott, Margaret Qualley, and Bobby Cannavale. Now, this film is very much a chamber piece, and that is a film that is set in one setting. It's very dialogue heavy. It feels so much like a play, which kind of works out in its favor considering its subject matter, but it follows songwriter Lorenz Hart as he reflects on himself and his career on the opening night of Oklahoma, a new musical by his former colleague Richard Rodgers. Now, this is a man who has given the world amazing hits like My Funny Valentine, Blue Moon, etc., and so he finds himself on a bit of a downward spiral, not just tonight but in recent years. He and Rodgers have not worked together in about 15 years. Things are a little bit tense between the two of them, and so this big opening night for Rodgers is very hard for Hart just because he was not asked to be a part of this production. And then you have Hart yearning after Margaret Qualley's character Elizabeth, this young woman who wants to be a part of the musical theater space any which way she can. She mainly views him as a mentor. He doesn't really get the picture there. When I think about some Richard Linklater films that are kind of similar to this, the Before trilogy is very much a bit of a chamber piece. It's dialogue heavy. They are reflecting on their life. They're talking about and learning about each other. I think it serves as a really great companion to this, and it's no wonder why he likes working in this space because those films are fantastic. Throughout the evening, we get to listen to Lorenz Hart talk about his career, talk about how amazing things were when he and Rodgers would collaborate. He would talk about how he was wronged. This guy is a bit of a professional hater, but also he's very complex. He's very much akin to Michael Keaton's character in Birdman. Pretty much a washed up has-been, but it's not clicking for him. His drinking has gotten him into a lot of trouble over the years. That's a big reason why they stopped working together. But Ethan Hawke plays this character so wonderfully. I mean, I am like zoned in to just how much of a pathetic, self-depreciating, messy guy he is. Like, I don't really want to spend time with him, but I can't help but marvel at him. I feel like if I was in this bar, I would probably not be wanting to pay attention to him, but also would have so much trouble not paying attention to him because he has these big stories and his character is so loud, and so I was very impressed by him in this film. I will admit though that some of the scenes where it's mainly just him speaking to Bobby Cannavale, who plays a very friendly and attentive bartender, they're not always the most interesting. I actually have quite a hard time with chamber pieces just because you really have to give me like amazing dialogue and just unforgettable characters for me to be fully locked into it. And so we had that for sure at times here. I just think that certain scenes and just certain stories were like, okay, let's go move on to the next thing, or let's let somebody else talk for a second. I do have to shout out, though, a lot of mentions of the film Casablanca and talking about how amazing that screenplay is and just iconic lines from that. That got big brownie points for me, and you should watch it if you have not seen this amazing film. But I will say, once Andrew Scott and Margaret Qualley's characters come in and they get to play opposite against him, I think that really helps bring up the energy levels. Hart's relationship with Rodgers is very interesting, especially because Rodgers Rogers does approach him with the idea of wanting to work with him again, but then Hart just kind of goes on a downward spiral, and he's kind of sabotaging himself before anything has even started, and the two of them start bickering and getting into these fights, even though this is such a huge night for Rogers. And Hammerstein, his collaborator in this play, kind of reminded me of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, just seeing this not couple, but, you know, kind of couple, bickering and arguing in all of these corners of this party, and everyone is like, what do we do? And seeing Ethan Hawke and Andrew Scott fight and bicker against each other is so wonderful in this film. It's no wonder why Andrew Scott won Best Supporting Performance at the Berlin Film Festival. I really enjoyed seeing this, like, tension that's underneath the surface that nobody wants to talk about, and yet there's still being so much respect for each other. I loved that balance. And then Margaret Qualley's Elizabeth is also so interesting to see how she acts and reacts with Hart. He is obsessed with her and in love with her, despite she being like 20 plus years younger than him and his protege, and he her mentor. There's a lot of problematic things going on with this situation, but she's recounting this one story of her having a crush on a guy her age and how much she yearned for him and what their relationship looked like. And Hart is just like hinging on every single word, waiting for it. He wants to hear all these details, and it was such an interesting part about this character, I thought, where he is like so low on himself that he would rather listen to the girl that he is in love with talk about another man than anything else. Like, it was so mind-boggling, and I thought really insightful to Hart's character, and again, just so amazingly brought to life by Ethan Hawke. So ultimately I settled on a 3.5 out of 5 stars for this film. While Blue Moon was set in the 1940s, we are now jumping ahead to 1959 with Nouvelle Vague. This is a true film lover's film because those who know their film history are very much familiar with Jacques-Luc Godard's Breathless, this big important film in the French New Wave era that really kind of changed the way films could be shot and presented. And so I feel like those who are really going to appreciate this film have already seen that film. So if you haven't, here's a great opportunity to watch Breathless. But Nouvelle Vague stars Guillaume Marbeck, Zoey Deutch, and Aubry Dullin. This film is kind of the behind the scenes of what it was like to film Breathless. It follows Jean-Luc Godard as he tries to figure out what he wants to do with his film studies and what film he wants to make when other contemporaries and classmates of his have already made their first projects. And eventually it does lead to Breathless, which starred Jean Seberg and Jean-Paul Belmondo. I very much thought this was a charming, stylish film. I mean, just seeing it in black and white and very much mirrored the style of Breathless was wonderful. It might not be as chaotic as Breathless is. I mean, that is a film where it's very choppy in certain moments and then is really elongated in other moments that don't seem quite as important. It, like I said, it totally flipped the idea of filmmaking and cinema on its head when it came out. But I mean, there's nothing more romantic than seeing Paris and France in black and white films and just seeing people strolling down the streets. It all adds to this beautiful charm that this film has. Perhaps not quite as charming as this film or Breathless, but a very interesting companion to Nouvelle Vague would be The Disaster Artist. That film, which showed the behind-the-scenes filming of The Room, is probably not as important as Breathless is when it comes to film history. However, it's gained cult classic status, so pretty much it has made it. Since this film is very much akin to Richard Linklater's Hangout films, I really enjoyed this trio that is cast in this film. Guillaume Marbeck as Jean-Luc Godard is so mysterious and just a bit of an ass because he is always wearing his sunglasses indoors, and he just doesn't really care to inform other people of what he is thinking for this film. It would absolutely drive me crazy because he like doesn't have any pages ready. He never really knows what he wants to film. Sometimes he'll just film for like 10 minutes and then he's like, okay, we're done for the day. I have to go and think of what is coming the next day. And so I quite enjoy the chaotic nature that he was able to capture in her performance. I think that the real heart of the film is Zoey Deutch as Jean Seberg. I just love the charm and the vibes and the aura that she gives off. She is so glamorous. She is so gorgeous with this pixie haircut and just this way that she has about her. And I do also really love the way that she butts heads with Jean-Luc Godard more often than not. And I totally get it. I would be so annoyed too. I mean, this is a rising star. She's doing this film. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, she turned down another role in order to make this film. And then for this guy to not really ever be including her in the filming and is like dragging on when scenes are being filmed, I would be so angry. So Jean is totally in the right in this film. And then I in particular really like her scenes with Aubry Dullin, who plays Jean-Paul Belmondo, because they too are kind of like, this is bad, right? This movie is gonna be terrible. This is not working out. There's a bit of a almost like flirty relationship in nature that forms between the two of them, and it really is such a joy to see them on screen. Zoey joins a growing list of actresses who have played other actresses. I think of Cate Blanchett playing Katharine Hepburn and Kate Beckinsale playing Ava Gardner in The Aviator. I would say as I was watching this film, I did quite enjoy seeing all the way that these characters kind of butted heads, and especially Jean-Luc Godard and his producer. But I think overall with this film, it's not that it feels aimless, but there's kind of nothing extra going on here. It's a hangout movie, so I suppose that's just kind of how it's going to be. I don't know. I mean, I guess they did not know that this film would become the sensation that it was and that it would be so important. Otherwise, that they would just kind of have these big grandiose ideas about themselves. But I guess I just kind of wanted some type of commentary from Jean-Luc. He's very much not really talking about anything that this film is supposed to symbolize or mean or what he expects from its outcome. Maybe he just wanted to get something out there just to have something out there. With The Disaster Artist, for example, that movie was really all about Tommy Wiseau and this grand idea he had for how amazing this film is going to be, but in reality we're seeing just how much of a disaster it is. So I kind of would have liked maybe a little bit more of like a meta commentary of sorts with Nouvelle Vague, but as it is, it's cute, it's fun, it is going to be one that film lovers I think will appreciate, especially just seeing a different type of film like this. I can't really think of many other films in this similar style, and especially diving into a topic that may be niche compared to what mainstream media and what casual movie fans are thinking about and watching. So it'll be really interesting to see how this film fares on Netflix. I do kind of have a hard time believing that people will be like, oh, the behind the scenes movie of Breathless. Yes, I will click play on this, but who knows, maybe they will learn something and maybe they will actually check out Breathless. That is the hope here. I ended up giving Nouvelle Vague 3.5 out of 5 stars, so we've got 2 Linklater films with the same ratings from me. I'd love to hear what you guys think of them once you finally get a chance to see them. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you here next time.